So all I've done so far was import the DICOM data, select new patient, import DICOMs, and you'll get this rendering. Then I just added import DICOM data of model. And what I'm going to do now is just stitch these two digitally. So we'll plot some marks on here, 2 here for the molar. I usually do 2 for molars and singles. Canines I usually give 2, but in the vertical direction. And then maybe like over here again for the this and this, and maybe like 1 in the anterior. 1, 2, 3. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, something like that. And we're going to go into the next section. Let the computer try to stitch these two together, and then see what it comes out with. This will take a while for it to think. It'll usually show you this before you get into the next screen. And in here, what I'll usually do is run this section, see how accurate I am. It looks good in some of these views, but it looks pretty good here and here and there. Looks good there too. So you can see, I'm just looking at the overlay on these teeth and see how accurate it is. And it really does look good. It's a little off right here. That could be some beam hardening. For the most part, really not bad at all. Let's take a look at it again. What you want to see is, let's take off the surfaces, isolate, lower. You kind of want to see this gray go through a little bit of the color on both sides. That usually means you have a pretty good stitch. It blends pretty well, but we can double check once again to make sure it's perfect. And we're going to be placing an implant in this quadrant here. So we'll see how this comes out. That's the implant. It's within a good range. Yeah, it doesn't look bad at all. So as you can see, we've placed this bridge not that long ago. We placed this implant right after we placed it and restored it with a single tooth crown. This tooth fractured, and instead of placing another implant, because there were some financial concerns, we did a cantilever off this tooth. This tooth's in full occlusion. This tooth's out of occlusion. But when he chews, he can get some leverage on this tooth. So the idea is to place an implant here in this area. You can see the angle of the current tooth. So we had to place this implant at an angle, and I wanted this cantilever effect. So what I'd like to do is, now this tooth has a decay below the bone, I'm going to place an implant here and then eventually convert this to a 3-unit bridge, or maybe even fixate these 2 teeth. We have a couple different options because I don't like that cantilever. He's doing a good job of keeping it clean. So what we're going to do is we're going to press add nerve, detect nerve, click right here. It's going to automatically drop a nerve for us. I'm okay with that. This needs to be changed here and here. And then we can go back and check this in this view. That looks like it's pretty on point. So now what we want to do is add our implant. So add implant, do a mandibular implant, 4.3 preferably. I'm thinking around 11 or 13 is where I'll end up. And then I kind of want to place this in an ideal scenario in line with this canine tooth. Just a little cant of that. So I'll probably place somewhere like this. Let's look at it in other views. You can see I'm out of the bony housing a little bit, so I need to make some changes. And looking from an occlusal view, let's turn the surfaces this off. So this is coming out real far lingual. You can see it here, change view. That's where I'm looking as I'm rotating this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this around to see how well I am. And in this view, right here, where this green line is, even with these arrows, this really should be in the middle. And then as I rotate with my mouse, you can see how close I am to the canine. So I'm going to push this back a little bit. Re-angle this just slightly. You can see the anterior loop here. So I can back this off to 11.5 if I wanted to. Let's do that. Let's see. Because I want to be 5 millimeters away from that canal. But I don't want to slip in that root. So what I'll do is I'll extract the tooth, form this osteotomy, graft this distal portion, place my implant in the ideal position. So in order to do that, I'm going to make a guide on this. So what we'll do is go back into implant, turn on guide tubes, and this is selected for BioCut drills. And what I like to do is use my pilot drill kit that offsets automatically to a 3.1. Changing it to the Blue Sky Bio pilot drill will change the outside diameter to a 3.1 that'll fit guide sleeve tubes that are 3.0, and the inner diameter is a 2.1 that fits a 2.0 drill. So at this point, if you're going to use guide sleeves, you go ahead and move on to the next section. If you want to use a custom kit, the only problem with using custom kits is you'll lose your death drill. So I prefer pilot drill kits. Or you could stay in this and change this number to a 2.1 and still get the depth drill guide. So, and I guess I'll just show it to you like this. At this point, we'll go into a add panel view. We'll add in not model manipulation, but guide panel. There we go. And then make sure you click on model. Quality of the guide, we're going to click on high. Mandible, draw curve. I always like to cross the arch. Edit curve. That looks pretty good. So create surgical guide. And this is what you'll get when it's all said and done. Just make sure that our implants are on lock so we don't change the orientation at all. We'll turn surfaces off and turn all implants off, and you're left with something like this. So it'll be good because you can see this tooth. It has a distal tooth to rest on after the extraction. Now this is taking into consideration that we treatment plan this without extracting the tooth. So what we'll do now is save all this data, but go back into model scan. And I like to duplicate this model and press, we'll just use this model scan cut. We'll change our color to pink. Turn off this guide. So what we'll do in this one, which is a little bit different, we'll turn back on the implant guide tube, and I'll come from the lingual aspect and I'll click on surfaces, cut, and I'll press shift and I'll hold down shift while I'm clicking the left button, and we'll essentially virtually extract this tooth from the lingual aspect. Let's see what that looks like. And then we can clip this little piece right here. You just got to be careful when you're cutting. If I would cut like this, I'd be cutting this background too, because it's in 3D. So that looks something like this. That's not too shabby. And now when we go back into guide panel, this time to click on the pink one, we'll click edit curve, and it won't come off. So now we got to redraw it. So draw curve, shift, edit curve, and then press create surgical guide once again. So really the scenario surgically what we'll do is take the tooth out, then place the guide, then start drilling our pilot hole or pilot drill hole. So this is what that guide looks like as compared to, let's turn back on this guide, something like this. A little bit more visual, I guess. You can see a little bit more of the buckle as opposed to this brown guide. Some people might like that. So basically just cutting this away. And one last feature I've not talked about, you see how that you can't really tell if the guide's sitting on the left side. All you really need to do is click on guide, click on cut, hold the shift down, cut like a little tiny hole right here. And then that's it. You'll be able to see it sit on this side of the guide. Now you save this data, then file export, and send that out to print, and you're done.